This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. It's Friday, April 25th, 2025. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Trump is offering rare criticism of Vladimir Putin.
His patience is running very thin.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Two big developments in the cases of two men who say they were mistakenly deported. I'm Richard Johnson.
The transgender military ban could be heading to the Supreme Court, and a judge blocks the Education Department's DEI plans.
A wildfire rages and a teenager is in custody. I'm Katie Clark with details.
On Wall Street, stocks soared yesterday after investors scooped up beaten down tech shares. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
An Illinois man gets life in prison without parole for the deadly shooting at a 2022 July 4th parade. I'm Ed Donahue.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The White House says there's some progress being made in ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports that President Trump says the Kremlin has already made a big concession in the push to end the Ukraine war, but also offered rare criticism of Vladimir Putin after Russian strikes on Kyiv.
President Trump says Russia's already made a big concession amid efforts to end the war with Ukraine. Asked what Vladimir Putin's doing to help reach a peace deal,
stopping taking the whole country. Pretty big concession.
The president spoke in the Oval Office hours after lobbing rare criticism at Putin following deadly strikes on Kyiv, with a social media post reading, "Vladimir, stop."
I wasn't happy with it, and we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired, and I was not happy with it. That's what I meant.
That comes a day after the president lit into Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky, accusing him of prolonging the war by refusing to surrender Russian-occupied Crimea as part of a possible peace deal.
I think Russia is ready, and a lot of people said Russia wanted to go for the whole thing. And I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far, it's been harder.
The president's frustrated. His patience is running very thin.
White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt. Zelensky notes Ukraine has agreed to a U.S. ceasefire proposal as a first step toward peace, but Russia keeps attacking.
I have my own deadline, and we want it to be fast, and the prime minister is helping us. He wants it to be fast, too. And I think everybody at this time in NATO, they want to see this thing happen.
I worked with him for 4 years between 2010 and 2014. I stopped trying to read his mind. We'll see, but there is something on the table now, I think, where the Ukrainians are really playing ball. And I think the ball is clearly in the Russian court now.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
There's been movement in two cases involving two men who say they were mistakenly, and as their lawyers are alleging, illegally deported to El Salvador. The details from correspondent Rich Johnson.
A federal judge in Maryland has ruled that the Trump administration wrongly deported to El Salvador a 20-year-old Venezuelan referred to in court papers as Christian. The judge ordered the government to facilitate Christian's return in a ruling similar to the higher-profile case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The latest in that case, the judge, with both sides' agreement, has paused the order requiring the White House to provide regular updates on efforts to get him released from El Salvador. You'll remember that Abrego Garcia received a visit from Senator Chris Van Hollen earlier this month. On his return to the U.S., the Maryland Democrat reminded supporters the efforts are not just about one man.
It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States of America. If you deny the constitutional rights of one man, you threaten the constitutional rights and due process for everyone else in America.
And it was due process that was behind the U.S. Supreme Court ruling allowing deportations, but only after a hearing for each deportee. President Trump continues to resist.
A judge can't say, no, you have to have a trial. The trial's going to take 2 years, and no, we're going to have a very we're going to have a very dangerous country if we're not allowed to do what we're entitled to do.
Several other deportation cases are pending, including those focused on whether the president can use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 as legal justification. The act's been invoked by past presidents only during declared wars. I'm Rich Johnson.
The desire to build a bonfire leads to one of the largest fires in New Jersey history. We'll have details on the blaze when America in the Morning returns after this. Another work week coming to a close with rain in the forecast in some parts of the country. Other parts of the U.S. are going to be unseasonably cool. Here's meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As what was a loosely organized disturbance that brought days of showers and thunderstorms to the center of the nation, even repeated days of severe weather in parts of the high plains, finally takes shape as a more well-defined storm, the result will be a more cohesive zone with the highest chance for multiple showers and some thunderstorms extending from central and eastern Oklahoma into Ohio today. This more active zone may stretch into southwestern Pennsylvania at times, but places from central Iowa to northern Oklahoma, the eastern Texas Panhandle, and central and eastern Texas, even Louisiana and northern parts of Alabama and Georgia all have at least a slight risk for a thunderstorm today as this disturbance moves along to the north and east. Afternoon thunderstorm coverage looks to be more spotty over the Carolinas and into central Virginia, but most of the northeast and mid-Atlantic should be dry, at least near the coast, with an afternoon shower or two developing from northern New York into northern New England as a warm front lifts through the area. Unfortunately, another dry spot in the east today will be Florida, where days of hot and dry conditions, including some new daily record highs in cities such as Tampa, have led to worsening drought conditions only made worse by daily gusty breezes. This combination of factors means that today brings another afternoon of heightened fire risk along the Florida peninsula, especially away from the Atlantic coast, with upper 80s and some 90s again expected. The opposite is true in parts of the west, where a storm pushing onshore in California brings in enough cold air for today's rain showers to transition to some snow as low as 4,500 feet at times through early Sunday. In San Antonio, expect a humid day with some sun at times and a stray thunderstorm with a high of 85. For Minneapolis, some afternoon sun returns with a high of 60. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts. You can listen on your preferred platform. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. A document surrounding congestion pricing in New York has led to lawyers on the case being replaced. The ongoing legal battle between Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and New York Governor Kathy Hochul involves the New York Metropolitan Transit Authority charging vehicles to access Manhattan below 60th Street during peak hours.
State law requires that congestion pricing simultaneously raise money for the MTA and drive down traffic congestion.
Secretary Duffy said this week that he would cut off approval and funding for construction projects in New York City if the state doesn't end the congestion pricing program. This as the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office says it accidentally filed a confidential memo that questioned the Department of Transportation's legal strategy in the case. Assistant U.S. attorneys reportedly warned that Duffy's plan to end congestion pricing was exceedingly likely to fail. A DOT spokesperson said the filing of the memo was, quote, legal malpractice. A spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office called the publication of the filing an honest error. A teenager who wanted to build a bonfire appears to be responsible for starting one of the largest wildfires in New Jersey history. The latest on the out-of-control blaze and health issues from correspondent Katie Clark.
A 19-year-old from Waretown was arrested with suspicion of setting a fire that rapidly grew to over 15,000 acres and is only 50% contained. Joseph Kling allegedly burned wooden pallets and left them unattended. He is charged with second-degree aggravated arson in addition to other charges, including purposely destroying a forest. The Jones Road wildfire origin is near Kling's residence. New Jersey State Commissioner of Environmental Protection, Scott LaTourette, said it could end up being New Jersey's biggest wildfire in 20 years. Lacey Township Mayor Peter Curatolo.
At the peak of the incident, we had over 4,000 people evacuated from Waretown. Our police department, our EMS, helped all the seniors in senior villages and apartments get out very safely and swiftly. My family is one of those who evacuated also. All roads are now open. All the evacuation orders are all lifted.
The wildfires causing air quality issues 60 miles away around New York City. I'm Katie Clark.
In sports, the 2025 NFL Draft saw quarterback Cam Ward taken first by the Tennessee Titans. Two-way player Travis Hunter went second to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Abdul Carter went third to the New York Giants. Some good news on Wall Street as the weekend arrives. We'll bring it to you in Friday Business when America in the Morning returns. Stay with us. Friday Business brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Friday Business.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning day for stocks yesterday. Investors were scooping up beaten down tech shares. After the closing bell last night, Google parent Alphabet reported better than expected quarterly results, and its shares were soaring.
We've been through markets like this before, where there's this game and every day the game resets and you have to guess which side's going to win that day. And I think most investors should not try to play that game. People that are swing trading, day trading, have at it, have fun. I know there's some money to be made there. It's not my game.
That's Ritholtz Wealth's Josh Brown on CNBC. South Korea may be close to a trade deal with the U.S., according to the Treasury Secretary. But as far as China goes, it's a mystery. China said there have been no talks with the U.S.
There's, sort of bizarre back and forth. We had the Chinese denial that there were any talks. Then the president of the United States said they had a meeting this morning, but then he said, I'm not going to say who they is. That set off a kind of a mystery here at the White House. It's possible there's some kind of secret negotiation going on behind the scenes here, but we can't see any evidence of it.
CNBC's Eamon Javers. American Airlines has now withdrawn its full-year revenue forecast as people buy fewer plane tickets.
Saw, decent business in January. Domestic leisure travel fell off considerably as we went into February, and that's persisted. The uncertainty is the reason behind pulling our guide.
American Airlines CEO Robert Isom on CNBC. Disappointing outlooks from two other airlines.
Southwest Airlines says that it will reduce its capacity in the second half of the year as more signs point to weaker domestic bookings. Meantime, Alaska Airlines posted mixed results and said that it would not update its full-year guidance either. These are leading economic indicators. Airlines tend to pick up on these things rather quickly with bookings and what they can see.
CNBC's Becky Quick. Procter & Gamble says price increases are likely as soon as June 1st. P&G makes Tide, Gillette razors, Bounty paper towels, just to name a few brands.
Tariffs are inherently inflationary.
You just said that there likely will be price increases. How high do you think that will be?
I don't know. It's obviously different for different products.
Procter & Gamble CEO John Mueller on CNBC with CNBC's Becky Quick. The spring real estate market, very slow. Existing home sales in March fell to their slowest pace since 2009. That was a great recession.
More inventory and slower sales are starting to put the chill on prices. The median price of an existing home sold in March was $403,000, still an all-time high for the month.
CNBC's Diana Olick. On today's watch list, the man accused of killing the CEO of United Healthcare, Luigi Mangione, will be arraigned in federal court. New in theaters, Screen Gems horror film Until Dawn and Amazon MGM's The Accountant 2.
The death penalty is on the table for the alleged killer in a high-profile college slaying. We'll tell you what Brian Kohberger's lawyers argued when America in the Morning returns after this. An Idaho judge ruled that prosecutors could seek the death penalty against Brian Kohberger if he's found guilty of the 2022 slaying of 4 University of Idaho students. Judge Stephen Hippler's decision comes after Kohberger's attorneys asked the court to bar the sentence because of his autism diagnosis. Prosecutors said they intend to seek the death penalty if Kohberger is convicted at trial, which is set to start in August. Attorneys for the defense argued that executing someone with with autism could constitute cruel and unusual punishment under the 8th Amendment. Autopsies showed the 4 students Kohberger's alleged to have killed were all likely asleep when they were attacked. Some had defensive wounds, and each was stabbed multiple times. A judge has handed down the maximum sentence allowed by law for the man who pleaded guilty to opening fire at a July 4th parade in suburban Chicago in 2022 that killed 7 people. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
An Illinois man gets life in prison without parole for the deadly shooting at a 2022 July 4th parade. Lake County Judge Victoria Rossetti called Robert Cremo III irretrievably depraved, permanently incorrigible, irreparably corrupt, and beyond any rehabilitation. 7 people were shot and killed at the parade in Highland Park. Ashby Beasley is a survivor of the shooting.
We've just all held our breath just to make sure that he would never, ever be free again. And now that that's happened, it's like we can exhale.
For the victims' families,
Robert Cremo will rot in a cage where he belongs.
Attorney Lance Northcutt says true justice was not done. Cremo changed so many lives.
Families were robbed of those experiences. Birthdays, Christmases, celebrations. And forever this community will be marred by the evil of one man.
Cremo was not in court. I'm Ed Donahue.
America in the Morning for Friday, April 25th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout, and this is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout. Here's what's coming up this half hour. We'll have the latest on the funeral for Pope Francis.
Infighting between the head of the Democratic National Committee and the vice chair over a challenge to incumbent Democrats. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The transgender military ban could be heading to the Supreme Court, and a judge blocks the Education Department's DEI plans.
A judge blocks President Trump's executive order to require proof of citizenship for voting. I'm Bob Brown.
The largest union for federal employees is planning to lay off more than half of its staff nationwide. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Ben Affleck returns in theaters as a very dangerous numbers man. I'm Kevin Carr.
We'll be right back. Another spring day brings more chances for rain across much of the United States. Now, not everybody's going to get wet, but meteorologist LaTroy Thornton tells us if you're one of the lucky ones.
A potent disturbance off the west coast barrels into California and much of the southwest later tonight and into Saturday. This feature will pull very chilly air into the region, with Saturday in particular featuring highs of 10 to 20 degrees below the historical average across just about all of California and into far western Nevada. This air will be cold enough to bring down snow levels to 4,500 to 5,000 feet for both the Sierra Nevada and into central Nevada, where some snow can reach the passes and accumulate starting tonight, leading to slick travel conditions and lowered visibility within any particularly heavy snow. Otherwise, today's precipitation in the west spreads from coastal northern California, including in the northern San Francisco Bay Area, to the foothills of the Sierra and eventually southern Oregon, as thunder showers break out across northern Utah and western Wyoming, and showers dot central Colorado. Farther to the east, a persistent storm that has brought days of rain to parts of the plains and Midwest finally starts to really organize and move along toward the eastern states today. This means that areas that were active on Thursday, such as the central plains and the upper Midwest, dry out and in some cases cool down, while showers and thunderstorms finally move into the eastern Great Lakes, including cities such as Detroit. In fact, the zone from northern New England to western New York, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and southward to central Pennsylvania, most of the Carolinas, and northern Alabama and Georgia, and even toward the central Gulf Coast, has at least the risk for an afternoon thunderstorm, with showers and storms likely to be most numerous from central Oklahoma through Ohio, as parched and hot portions of Florida that really could use some of this rain instead remain in a heightened fire risk for today. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts. Follow and listen on your favorite platform. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The funeral for Pope Francis is slated for tomorrow in Rome. President Trump leaves today for the Vatican, where he and other world leaders will attend the service.
The president will depart from Washington on Friday morning and return to the United States on Saturday evening following the funeral service.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
Prayers of the entire White House remain with all of the Catholics around the world who are mourning the death of Pope Francis. Pope Francis touched millions of lives and dedicated his life to serving the Catholic Church. As a mark of respect for his memory, President Trump ordered flags be flown at half-staff.
Other high-profile leaders expected to be at the service include Prince William, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, French President Emmanuel Macron, Spain's King and Queen, Brazil's President, and others. All eyes will be on that seating chart. At previous funerals for a pope, heads of state have been seated in the third row. Well, 130 delegations in total are expected to honor Pope Francis this weekend. Meanwhile, leaders of the Catholic Church gather in Rome. Cardinal Timothy Dolan is one of 10 cardinals from the United States who will have a vote in the ritual that will pick the next pope. He posted a video on social media.
We meet from 9 to 1 and then from 4:30 to 7.
The focus right now, funeral preparations.
Just sort of some housekeeping details.
The Pope lies in state ahead of the funeral. Around 50,000 people, with that number growing fast, have paid respects to Francis, some sparking outrage after posting videos and selfies in front of the wooden coffin that the Pope lies inside. Images show crowds of people holding their phones high in the air to try to get a photo. The life and death of Pope Francis front and center this weekend before the process of picking the next pope ramps up in weeks to come. A war of words is brewing inside the Democratic National Committee as the new chairman criticizes a plan by the committee's vice chair to challenge incumbent Democrats in the midterm elections. John Stolness has more from Washington.
The new head of the DNC, Ken Martin, announcing yesterday a change to the party's rules that would ban party officials from taking sides in primaries. This comes after Vice Chair David Hogg announced last week he would start putting money behind younger incumbents in safe Democratic districts to ensure a shakeup inside the party. Martin on Fox News yesterday.
Let me be unequivocal. No DNC officer should ever attempt to influence the outcome of a primary election, whether on behalf of an incumbent or a challenger.
Chairman Martin says he has no issue with Hogg taking sides, but he has a choice to make.
If you want to challenge incumbents, you're more than free to do that, but just not as an officer of the DNC, because our job is to be neutral arbiters. We can't be both the referee and also the player at the same time.
Hogg, meanwhile, wants to raise millions of dollars through a political action committee that is unrelated to the DNC in an effort to breathe new life into a party that he says is struggling to find its footing. Here on CNN last week.
The fact of the matter is right now our party is in a crisis. We are seeing people lose faith in our party. They're losing faith in democracy across the country. And we need to make sure that we're getting people to vote for Democrats, not simply because we're not Donald Trump, but because we have a better message, a better option for them, not simply the less bad of two options.
In a statement on social media, Hogg insists he is not breaking any DNC rules that currently exist and that things will not change if they keep the status quo. Chairman Martin maintains neutrality is critical to securing the confidence of voters. John Stolness, Washington.
Less harsh talk on tariffs has led to a stock market rebound after President Trump seemed to soften his stance on China. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports on the Trump administration's mixed signals over trade talks and the are there or aren't there U.S.-China negotiations over American tariffs.
President Trump and China are offering different views on whether talks are ongoing about U.S. tariffs, after his Treasury chief said there were no formal negotiations over the taxes. The president was asked if he's actively engaging with China.
Everything's active.
China's foreign ministry denied it, with a spokesman saying, for all he knows, Beijing and Washington are not having any talks on tariffs. Hours later,
They had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is.
the president has said things are going well with China, and he's shown interest in reaching a deal to lower his massive retaliatory tariffs, saying earlier this week he'll be very nice and not play hardball with President Xi Jinping.
I'm not going to say, I'm going to play hardball with China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice.
and we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal.
In the Oval Office, the president noted dozens of nations want to talk about lowering the import taxes.
We are making some great inroads and great deals.
Followed by Treasury Chief Scott Bessent saying the U.S. and South Korea may reach some terms on an agreement as early as next week.
We may be moving faster than I thought.
But just 4 minutes later, the president said the administration simply cannot negotiate with every country.
It would be physically impossible.
And at some point, the U.S. will simply set prices for deals.
Some will be tariffed. Some treated us very unfairly. They'll be tariffed higher than others.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The largest federal employee union in the country could be making drastic cuts. We'll tell you which one and why when America in the Morning returns after these messages. The Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to allow enforcement of a ban on transgender people in the military while legal challenges play out. In March, a U.S. district judge ruled for several long-serving transgender military members who say that the ban is insulting and discriminatory and that their firing would cause lasting damage to their reputations and to their careers. Without an order from the nation's highest court, the ban could not take effect for months. The High Court filing follows a brief order from a federal appeals court that kept in place a court order blocking the policy nationwide. A judge is putting the brakes on President Trump's request for voters to show proof of citizenship at the ballot box. Details from correspondent Bob Brown.
A federal judge has paused parts of an executive order signed by President Trump seeking tougher requirements in which Americans show documents proving their citizenship when registering to vote. Trump had wanted the requirement be added to a federal voter registration form. In her ruling, Judge Colleen Catelli says our Constitution entrusts Congress and the states, not the president, with the authority to regulate federal elections. President Trump is not forgetting the 2020 election.
Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight, and a very sad group of people is trying to disenfranchise that group of people, and we won't stand for it.
Other parts of the order would penalize states which count mail ballots arriving after Election Day. The judge isn't blocking parts of the executive order because cases filed against the administration are currently being played out in other courts. I'm Bob Brown.
The Trump administration also faced a loss in New Hampshire, where a federal judge blocked a series of directives from the Education Department, including a memo ordering an end to any practice that differentiates people based on their race, and another asking for assurances that schools don't use DEI practices deemed discriminatory. The decisions came ahead of a Friday deadline that the Education Department set for states to sign a form certifying they would not use illegal DEI. Judges in Maryland and D.C. also halted portions of the department's anti-DEI efforts. There's new trouble for government workers as the largest federal employee union may be forced to make drastic cuts. The details from correspondent Lisa Dwyer.
The largest union for federal employees is planning to lay off more than half of its staff nationwide after President Donald Trump's executive actions have rapidly weakened the organization's finances. The American Federation of Government Employees will move ahead with a reduction in force that could cut its 355 employees to approximately 150. The union has filed a flurry of lawsuits seeking to block everything from the mass firings of probationary workers to the sharing of sensitive data with DOJ. Trump signed an order last month seeking to strip union rights from roughly 600,000 of the 800,000 federal workers that the union represents. The union is challenging those moves in court, arguing that they are illegal and retaliatory. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
For sale signs are popping up everywhere in the nation's capital. Because of the large number of job cuts and buyouts to federal workers, real estate agency Bright MLS reports that the number of active home listings in and around Washington, D.C. is up by almost 47% from the same time a year ago. Intel's new CEO has announced new moves to match the emerging AI data center markets led by NVIDIA. Chuck Palm has details in today's Tech Report.
Intel has announced during a conference call this week that they will be changing how they address the demand for artificial intelligence chips. Intel's new CEO, Lip Bhutan, outlined how they hope to change the market by adopting a similar strategy to the way that NVIDIA no longer just sells chips, but entire data centers. Tan also said he would comb through Intel's existing products to sharpen them for emerging trends in the AI market, such as robotics and agents that carry out tasks for human users. Not only did Intel CEO say this would not be a quick fix, but the CFO, David Zinsser, said that in the near term, Intel won't make many more acquisitions. Zinsser said, quote, "Our priority will need to be at this point getting the balance sheet to a better place." Overall, Intel's goal is to become a better platform of choice for their customers, and it is required that they radically evolve their design and engineering mindset to anticipate the needs of their customers in advance. Find me at chuckpalm.com.
Robert Workman has sports.
The first round of the NFL draft last night, the Titans made former Miami Hurricanes quarterback Cam Ward the #1 overall choice. Then there was a big trade. The Browns sent the #2 pick to Jacksonville for the 5th overall choice, along with 2nd and 4th round picks this year and next year's first rounder. Jags defensive lineman and Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, Eric Armstead, then announced the Jags pick on the NFL Network.
With the 2nd pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Travis Hunter, wide receiver, defensive back.
Hunter won the Heisman Trophy for Colorado. His running mate with the Buffaloes, quarterback Shedeur Sanders, was not chosen in round 1. In fact, after Ward, only one other QB was drafted last night, Mississippi's Jackson Dart, going to the Giants. Rounds 2 and 3 will be held tonight, the final 4 rounds on Saturday afternoon. NBA playoffs, a crazy comeback by the Thunder, wiping out a 29-point deficit to top the Grizzlies 114-108 and move to within one victory of advancing to the next round. Memphis built that lead in the first half before losing Ja Morant to a hip injury. NBA scoring champ Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 31 points. Chet Holmgren scored 23 of his 24 points in the second half. The Thunder can clinch the series tomorrow. Also last night, the Clippers clobbered the Nuggets to go up 2-1. And in the East, the Knicks nipped the Pistons for a 2-1 lead in that series. Karl Anthony Towns had 31 points. Jalen Brunson 30. Stanley Cup playoffs, Blues blasted the Jets 7-2. Pavel Buchnevich with a hat trick. Robert Thomas 4 assists. Winnipeg still leads the series 2-1. Wild down the Golden Knights to go up 2-1 in that best of 7. In the East, the defending Stanley Cup champion Panthers zapped the Lightning 2-0 to take both games in Tampa. Game 3 in South Florida tomorrow. And the Maple Leafs shaded the Senators in overtime. Toronto now up 3-0. Baseball, A's scored twice in the bottom of the 9th to tip the Rangers 4-3. White Sox topped the Twins 3-0 in a 7-inning game shortened by rain. That ends Chicago's 14-game losing streak at Target Field. Royals took 2 from the Rockies. Wins for the Rays, Angels, Mariners, Orioles, and Giants. That's Friday Sports.
Global music lovers converging on one city in the South. We'll tell you which one and the reason why when America in the Morning returns after this. We may be past the IRS deadline, but that doesn't mean a movie starring someone who does taxes can't hit the theaters. Kevin Carr has a sneak peek at The Accountant 2.
I hope your taxes are done properly because Ben Affleck is back as the accountant you don't want to be in charge of your audit.
How are you?
I just love Accountant.
The Accountant 2 continues the story of an autistic man who used to make a living running numbers for organized crime.
Did I make you nervous?
You're an escaped convict, trained by mob accountants. Your clients are drug cartels, money launderers.
Is that a yes?
After escaping from prison, he works with a secret organization to help track down human traffickers and their victims.
Most brains seek a pattern that's familiar.
My brain doesn't work that way.
The sequel continues to showcase Affleck's talent as a relatable anti-hero, and with a more developed story of him and his hitman brother, the film leans into the whimsy and humor amid all the violence.
Is there anything in this world better than punching somebody in the face who's got it coming?
John Bernthal plays Affleck's brother, and the two have fantastic chemistry. This alone is enough to deliver an entertaining action film.
That's my big brother up there!
The script does struggle to handle a lot of things, from developing the fraternal relationship to telling a rather gruesome story about the bad guys.
Why would Ray meet with someone who killed all these people?
She didn't kill all those people.
How do you know that?
The movie still falls into the autism as a superpower Hollywood trope rather than just portraying people with autism as, well, people. But it's kind of forgivable in the grand scheme of action films.
Thank you. It's a family thing.
The Accountant 2 gets 3.5 deductions out of 5. I'm Kevin Carr, and that's the way I see it.
It's a New Orleans tradition that's not Mardi Gras, but brings in music lovers from around the world. Correspondent Donna Warder reports on this year's New Orleans Jazz Fest, which is now underway, complete with Southern delicacies and days of music that includes performers like Pearl Jam, the Dave Matthews Band, Patti LaBelle, and 10 days worth of jazz.
It's great for the city, great for the culture. It's some of the best music and food dishes that you can imagine for 2 weekends straight.
It's time for the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, which brings together good music and good food. And it's keeping Robert Harrison III very busy. He's Chief Executive Officer of Loretta's Pralines, or Pralines, if you really know what you're talking about.
Which is a French candy made of butter, sugar, milk, and pecans.
Harrison's late mother started the business. Now the pralines go in several items.
Praline cookie, praline chocolate chip cookie, praline shoe sole, praline beignet.
Harrison says he and his staff spend weeks preparing for the festival.
I mean, we're talking about 1,000 sweet potato cookies per day for 8 days. We're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 candies with thousands of beignets that we're selling at 2 different locations. And you have to be ready, because once those gates open, they're ready to roll.
I'm Donna Warder.
America in the Morning for Friday, April 25th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout, and this is Westwood One.